Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7. This section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, just after Prabhupada translated it, he published it as an individual little book called The Absolute Truth in 5 Features, something like that. Very important part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is text number 82. Hasaya natsaya more karaya krandana Eta suni guru hasi balila vachana Hashaya nachaya more karaya krandana Eta suni guru hasi balila vachana Hashaya, it causes me to laugh. Nachaya, causes me to dance. More, unto me. Karaya, it causes. Krandana, crying. Eta, thus. Shuni, hearing. Guru, my spiritual master. Hashi, smiling. Balila, said. Vachana, words. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Chanting the holy name in ecstasy causes one to dance, laugh and cry. When my spiritual master heard all this, he smiled and then began to speak. Purport. When a disciple very perfectly makes progress in spiritual life, this gladdens the spiritual master, who then also smiles in ecstasy, thinking, how successful my disciple has become. He feels so glad that he smiles as he enjoys the progress of the disciple, just as a smiling parent enjoys the activities of a child who is trying to stand up or crawl perfectly. So I think we'll go on to the next verse. Krishna nama mahamantrela eta swabhava ye japa tara Krishna upajai bhava. It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Aham savasya prabhavo matasavam pravartate iti mata vajanti mam buddhavava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, text 8. In this verse it is explained that one who chants the Hare Krishna mantra develops bhava, ecstasy, which is the point at which revelation begins. It is the preliminary stage in developing one's original love for God. A neophyte disciple begins by hearing and chanting, associating with devotees, and practicing the regulative principles. And thus he vanquishes all of his unwanted bad habits. In this way he develops attachment for Krishna and cannot forget Krishna even for a moment. Bhava is almost the successful stage of spiritual life. A sincere student orally receives the holy name from the spiritual master, and after being initiated, he follows the regulative principles given by the spiritual master. When the holy name is properly served in this way, automatically the spiritual nature of the holy name spreads. In other words, the devotee becomes qualified in offenselessly chanting the holy name. When one is completely fit to chant the holy name in this way, he is eligible to make disciples all over the world, and he actually becomes Jagat Guru. Then the entire world, under his influence, begins to chant the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Thus all the disciples of such a spiritual master increase in attachment for Krishna, and therefore he sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes dances, and sometimes chants. These symptoms are very prominently manifest in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. As explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, actually this is not due to practice. For without extra endeavour, these symptoms become manifest in anyone who sincerely chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Many fools, not knowing the transcendental nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, sometimes impede our loudly chanting this mantra. Yet one who is actually advanced in the fulfillment of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra induces others to chant also. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartana. Unless one receives special power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he cannot preach the glories of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As devotees propagate the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the general population of the entire world gets the opportunity to understand the glories of the holy name. While chanting and dancing or hearing the holy name of the Lord, one automatically remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because there is no difference between the holy name and Krishna, the chanter is immediately linked with Krishna. Thus connected, a devotee develops his original attitude of service to the Lord. In this attitude of constantly serving Krishna, which is called bhava, one always thinks of Krishna in many different ways. One who has attained this bhava stage is no longer under the clutches of the illusory energy. When other spiritual ingredients, such as trembling, perspiration, tears, etc., are added to this bhava stage, the devotee gradually attains love of Krishna. The holy name of Krishna is called the Mahamantra. Other mantras mentioned in the Narada Pancharatra are known simply as mantras. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord is called the Mahamantra. Om Gyan Timrandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshushrumilitam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvaya Patitanam Bhavanindyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This section of the Chaitanya Caritamrita discusses Lord Chaitanya's consulting his spiritual master as to the nature of the mantra which he has been given. A good disciple pleases the spiritual master agrees to accept him as his initiated follower, and he gives him instructions about how to achieve success in life. The ultimate goal of human life is to become established in devotional service. And as a result of practicing devotional service, then the natural results of that are love of God. This is the end goal of any bona fide process of religion. So in the Hare Krishna mantra is contained all of the potencies, all of the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of the names, and as a result of connecting with those names, and following the standard process of hearing and chanting, regulated activities, then one automatically develops love of God. When we say automatically, it's not like, or it is like, an automatic washing machine. An automatic washing machine, once you've picked up the clothes, sorted them out, put them into the machine, added the detergent, and then pushed the button, at the end, they come out clean. So automatically means that we have to endeavour, we have to engage, we have to be involved in the process. It's not just we've touched the mantra and then automatically that result will come. So Lord Caitanya approaches his spiritual master and puts before him, what is this mantra? What is the strength of the mantra? What type of mantra is it that you have given me? Because when I chant this mantra, then I become pagala. I become like a madman. Tears are coming from my eyes and I'm perspiring, and I can't help myself. I start rolling on the ground. All these ecstatic symptoms manifest as a result simply of my tongue touching this mantra. So, is this correct? Am I doing the right thing? And the verse we started with, his spiritual master, Ishvarapuri Maharaj, said, or didn't even say, he just smiled. He smiled. He was satisfied. He was satisfied to see the advancement, the development of his disciple. And Prabhupada in the purport, the acharyas in the purport, they are saying that this is just like the pleasure that a parent will feel for observing their child endeavouring to walk perfectly. It's interesting because Rupa Goswami, he uses that analogy, the child and the parent, also that for the child, in order for them to be able to walk, then that tendency has to be inherent within them. And by the process of encouragement and natural growth and development in due course of time, then that walking propensity will come out. It's a natural thing. It's not, you can't put it in if it's not already there. Same thing with the practice of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is activities which help to bring out the natural love of Godhead, which is eternally established within the hearts of all living entities. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhikabhinoy shravanadi sudhichiti karya udoy. The pure love of Godhead is eternally established in the hearts of all living entities. And by the proper process of hearing and chanting in the association of devotees, then it will naturally come out. So, after smiling, being satisfied, seeing that his disciple, who is non-different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is manifesting these symptoms, and that the relationship is bearing fruits, connecting with a spiritual master, then Prabhupada says in one purport, if you have a bona fide spiritual master, you should know everything. You should know everything. So all of these statements, that you will develop, that automatically chanting Hare Krishna, touching the Hare Krishna mantra, you automatically develop the mood of ecstasy. These are not necessarily quantified by time. Automatically means in due course of time. They're automatically there, and sometimes even we get a little glimpse Tears can come from our eyes. We can feel some ecstatic motions. Hairs on the back of our neck may stand on end. I think Lalanath or Kalasamvara, they were giving class, and they suddenly felt all of these ecstatic symptoms, these hairs standing on end, and they thought, wow, what's going on? And he turned around and he saw that somebody had opened the door and this chilly breeze had just come in, and he could explain it like that. Just like I was driving here this morning and suddenly my legs started trembling and I realised it was very cold. Even though it was warm in the car, it was only 8 degrees outside. So we can get a little glimpse, sometimes we get a shadow reflection of this experience of contacting Krishna. There's a section in the Nectar of Devotion which describes the characteristics of one who has developed this ecstasy. We're hearing some of and it was said at the end of the purport, we're hearing that one who has attained this bhava stage is no longer under the clutches of the illusory energy. When other spiritual ingredients such as trembling, perspiration, tears, etc. are added to the bhava stage, the devotee gradually attains love of Krishna. So bhava is the beginning, the preliminary stage of love of God. It's not prema. Bhava is the mood of ecstatic love in ecstasy. And some of these symptoms, perspiration, trembling, tears. So these are symptoms of this stage. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami, he describes other symptoms which sometimes be described as things that we can aspire for, more substantial, things you can take to the bank. So you have a few tears, you have a few perspiration, the horripilation, the goosebumps. They're not necessarily symptoms that you should start basing your assessment of your level of advancement on. Oh, I was chanting and I experienced these ecstatic symptoms. They're there. They are a shadow reflection. They're a shadow, pratibimba. They're a shadow reflection of the holy name. And they can also be considered to result from shadow attachment. There's two different types of attachment. There's shadow attachment and there's para attachment. So they're not intangible. They exist. We get a little glimpse. We're starting from the neophyte stage. We don't know anything about Krishna, we don't know anything about anything, but we hear the holy name, we become inspired, we get connected, we start to wonder where this name is coming from, and we start to associate with other people who are chanting the holy names. And by their association we can get inspired, we can get uplifted, we can get access to the realms of love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just recently, well, maybe 3 months ago, we were in Rishikesh, and there some of the best kirtaniyas in the world had assembled for a big kirtan fest amongst all of the yogis who were there for their yoga festival. And they're normally considered to be a tough crowd to crack. They're yogis. But they were coming along to this festival in droves and dancing in ecstasy. And I was reflecting on the quality of the leaders, the kirtan leaders. Some people were complaining, oh, it's going slow, it's a little bit, I'm going to come back later when it gets a little bit more fast and I can throw myself in and start gyrating and getting the energy moving. Some people from the Hare Krishna mantra, all they actually achieve, or all they're aspiring to achieve, is an increase in their bile secretion. They just want to get fired up and warmed up and like that. So some of these yogis, they were doing like that. But after a while, the really sincere ones, they they started to pick up on the satisfaction, the mood of service, and the love that was being fostered in that environment. Some people came along and they revealed their hearts to some of their friends, the devotees they'd made friends with, that we can't believe it. We can't believe it. It's too good. You people are too nice. We're frightened. There's something wrong. Too nice. And because not only was there ecstatic chanting and dancing, there was also a sumptuous, free 8 or 10 course vegetarian feast served up every night. So it was a really lovely package. So the Hare Krishna mantra was being presented by people like Madhav Prabhu and Bhattahari. So they're starting off slow and meditative, and it's for me, who am a bit of a wrestler when it comes to a holy name. Once I was leading a kirtan, and the pujari came out and said, Shanti's got the holy name in a headlock, trying to squeeze some Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So when they're starting off, these expert kirtan leaders, when they're starting off very slow, I can't clap in time even. It's very, very meditative. And but it's a nice mood early in the morning and different times like that. It's very satisfying. So Madhav Prabhu, he was leading, he was presenting leading the kirtan, and he'd then build up to a crescendo, gradually, gently, sweetly, and then everybody would just stop and he'd sing again, very slowly. Hare, just incredible. And when you listen to what he's saying, his love for the holy name was very clear, very nicely expressed. So in the association of such exalted chanters of the holy name, then it rubs off and people become uplifted. They develop some shadow attachment. They develop some symptoms of love, some symptoms of a higher state of being. So this is chanting in the association of experts, and eventually one can come to that stage of chanting expertly. In the purport, Prabhupada spells out the Shraddha to Prem scenario twice. That this is the normal procedure. That even if we do get to the stage of chanting in ecstasy with that attachment, it doesn't just happen automatically. It doesn't happen overnight. There's stages that one normally progresses through, and those stages they still remain. Beginning with faith. With faith. Faith is there from the beginning through to the end. Faith just becomes more and more mature. Faith is synonymous with intelligence. Faith is synonymous with attachment, with advancement. We know that there's 3 different types of devotee. First class, second class, and third class. Not that we're labeling, putting people into a category, but we can see by the level of their faith how much understanding of what they have faith in is manifesting, how deeply attached to Krishna they are. The first class devotee, his faith is unbreakable. He is devoid of the propensity to criticize others, and as Prabhupada mentioned, Jagat Guru. He's capable of chanting and inspiring the whole world to chant. The second class is also having unbreakable faith. Unbreakable faith. But their intelligence is not sufficiently developed. They're not steeped enough in the scriptures. They don't understand the conclusion well enough to be able to answer all challenges, to be able to direct people towards the proper place to find the answers. I've heard about it and I believe in it, but well, come back to me later and I'll find out that reference for you. Whereas the third class devotee is a beginner. It's just faith, but it's breakable, it's pliable. It's pliable. I'm here now and I have faith, but if somebody offers me a better proposition, some other idea, because I can't discriminate, because I can't really see what is the difference between Krishna and the devotees, then I might take that up. So my faith can be swayed. The third class, they're considered, offer respect to them, but they need to be supported, they need to be encouraged. They're not, if some of their claims, we don't really say, okay, well, you're spot on, let me follow you. So the different levels of devotee and the different stages to achieve bhava, beginning with faith, shraddha, sadhu sangha, develop a little bit of faith, and then we think, okay, well, I should find out more, I should be with people who are like-minded. And in their association, sadhu sangha, to bhajana kriya, I should maybe practice what they're doing. It looks good, they seem to be happy. And then, if I get really serious, then I can take initiation. I can take vows. And the spiritual master, he can help me to make further advancement. And that further advancement will then fructify into anatta nivritti. By making positive steps on the spiritual path, then the material inebrities, anattas, the unwanted things, they decline. And this, as I was saying, it's a more tangible characteristic of ecstasy is detachment. When we, rather than looking for signs that I am spiritually advanced, and therefore I should be offered more glorification, we can look for signs of how I'm becoming detached. Detachment is a much more tangible thing. Well, I used to be attached to these things and now I can get by, so that I must be making some advancement. Those things don't have such a big sway upon me anymore. So anatta nivritti. And then nishta, one becomes steady. Anishta, devotional service means one day I'm fired up, get up, I'm going to chant all my rounds, I'm going to do all this, and the next day I can't get out of bed, it's the wrong time of the week, it's just, and then slowly backwards and forwards, then eventually that becomes more steady. Devotional service, making advancement devotional service, it's like a roller coaster ride, it's like a sine wave, but slowly, those troughs and the peaks, they tend to flatten out. What's that word we're talking about now? Flattening the curve. This is different. That's a material roller coaster, and unless the people change their habits, their lifestyles very radically, then that roller coaster is going to continue for some time. Spiritual advancement is something you can take to the bank, and looking for that detachment from matter. That's a very tangible symptom. So nishta, and after nishta comes ruchi, taste. Taste is what drives us to do things. We like this, we have a taste for this. So to get a taste for spiritual life, taste for chanting, where we and eventually that taste, it matures and faith matures into a shakti, attachment, real solid attachment, where we can't live without Krishna. Prabhupada writes sometimes about there are people, devotees, who have developed a taste for Krishna consciousness, become a little bit steeped in Krishna consciousness, and then they can't live anymore with devotees. They get some disturbance, but they can't leave, and they can't live with. So their attachment is developed now to a stage where their heart's been poisoned and they're locked in. They can't escape anymore. It was voluntary in the start, but now there's no choice. We've signed up, we've enlisted, and now we're so attached that we can't live without. And then at that stage, after that, then the symptoms of love, of bhava, start to manifest. And Prabhupada says that that's the stage when actual revelation about the nature of God begins. Bhava, Bharat Maharaj, he's an example of a devotee who was on that stage where he was so attached to Krishna, he just gave up his whole kingdom, gave up his whole empire and left to the forest. But while he was in the forest, still engaging in his spiritual practices, he didn't have so much association. And he became attuned with nature. He was sensitive to the external energy of the Lord in its very attractive feature. And he was once down by the river performing his meditations, and in the middle of his meditation he saw a deer arrive on the banks of the river. And she was coming down to drink, and then this tiger roared. So the deer, always on edge, became frightened and in fear jumped across the little stream. And the Bharat Maharaj, he observed that the deer who was carrying a child had a miscarriage. And so he went and he rescued the baby deer, and then started looking after the deer, and the deer became dependent upon him and very affectionate. And then he became so absorbed in that other aspect of Krishna, the external energy of Krishna, that at the time of death, that was the main thing on his mind. So even though he'd achieved that level of attachment to Krishna bhava, still he was negligent. He didn't bring his mind back. He didn't endeavour to continue to engaging in devotional service. And in the purports in that section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are warnings to devotees. Even at the stage of bhava, you have to be cautious. There's another analogy which Prabhupada uses. It's the hing box, the container with hing. It's empty. You've scrubbed it out. It's clean. But if you put your nose to it, there's still a whiff of that original container, of what was in the container before. So even to get onto that level, then there's still the whiff of material attachment there. So all of these stages and all of the symptoms, the characteristics, all of the attitudes that develop, then they still require endeavour. You're not home until you're home. You're not home until you're home. So they're encouraging, they're supportive, they're developed in how to practice our chanting, to aspire for those things. But ultimately the attitude of the devotee is that, as is described in these other characteristics, the 8 characteristics of bhava, that they're aspiring to become eager to serve and attached to the chanting of the holy names, and can't live without glorifying the Lord, and happy to live in a holy place, not wanting to waste a moment's time, and reserved and perseverant. Perseverant means that we'll stick with it as long as it takes, even though those lovely qualities are not supporting us all the time. They're a glimpse, they're a shadow sometimes. They're not permanent. And prideless. I might have a little positive feeling at the moment, but then some of the other time, then it's a struggle. I'm not really such good association. Come back later when I'm feeling better. And great hope against hope. Even though Rupa Goswami, he describes that, and Srila Prabhupada described, I don't have much hope of the next crores of my lives of engaging in devotional service, but still, I'll keep engaging in devotional service. There's some hope that in the future I'll be able to please Krishna and connect with Krishna. So these are the characteristics which are there spelt out and discussed, described in some degree in this purport about how to chant the holy names. Knowing that automatically that result of love of God, Krishna Prem, is the ultimate destination. And we can get little glimpses of it, but we have to know how to sustain our practices, how to get out of this environment which we're so attached to, which is so tangible, which is so real externally. But internally, by associating with devotees and serving devotees and hearing these topics, we can develop an attachment for a higher reality. And with the help of others, devotees following in their footsteps, following in their path, then we can actually also rise to a higher platform of faith, love and service to Krishna. So, does anybody have any questions? The first verse said, chanting the holy name in ecstasy causes one to dance, laugh and cry. When my spiritual master heard all this, he smiled and then began to speak. It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna.
The verse says immediately. You mentioned that there wasn't necessarily a time, like the verse says immediately. But the Bengali, there's no, I was looking through the word for word, this doesn't seem to be necessarily immediately in the word for word. I'm just wondering about that book. Immediately, because that would be the pure chanting, and then instead of like shadow, what is it called? It's the Nam Brad, Nam Babas, and then Shukanam would be immediately pure chanting the pure holy name, and you immediately have the
Immediately develops. Development is an ongoing practice. It's an activity. Just like somebody's at the airport, they're on their way to India. Where are they? Oh, they're in India. So it's an expression. And we get stuck in linear thinking and like that this has to be here and then we have to be there. But immediately means that we've already arrived at the destination. We've already started. It's already, by chanting, we'll never step backwards. We'll always have the holy name. Krishna, if somebody chants the holy name once, Krishna marks him down and follows that person up. They're the best of the crowd. So immediately develops, our body changes, our subtle body changes. As soon as we touch the Hare Krishna mantra, then we're no longer the same anymore. So that's as immediate as it's going to get, as far as I can understand.
There's examples of when Lord Caitanya was personally spreading the holy name, and then people immediately manifested these symptoms of bhava.
His method of spreading the Hare Krishna mantra was he would chant in ecstasy, and then he would embrace someone, and then they would develop those ecstatic symptoms, and they'd go back to their village and they would embrace people. So that's especially empowered like that. So we also, there's interesting, Prabhupada describes that the pure devotee manifests these symptoms, and the disciples of the pure devotee, thus all the disciples of such a spiritual master increase in attachment for Krishna, and therefore he sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes dances, and sometimes chants. These symptoms are very prominently manifest in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. It's something you get transformed. We were doing a fire yajna. Vijay Gopikesh was doing the fire yajna at an Indian family's house. And the old grandfather, he was observing, and he was following along the mantras and following along the procedure, and he was satisfied it was all correct and paka. And then after the fire yajna, we had a kirtan, and we started dancing around the fire. So when that was finished, he came up to the devotees and he said, "It was very nice yajna, very nice. I was following, it was all paka, but there's one question. How do you dance like that?" He hadn't been able to grab that ecstasy, and he'd been following rules and regulations, and he was developed, he was educated. But that ecstasy comes from being a servant of a spiritual master who is established in that high level of Krishna consciousness. The subtle body changes. And when you're in a nice kirtan and the association of devotees, when you're feeling good, then dancing just comes automatically. And the dancing is just like puppets. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. You get carried away, you hurt your legs and your back gets sore because you've just been working so hard at dancing.
It was mentioned in the purport that we read that one of the revelation comes at the level of Bhava. So what does that mean? That means someone who's not on the Bhava platform doesn't get any revelation. Krishna doesn't reveal anything to that devotee. Only the ones who are on the Bhava get revelations. So Prabhupada really emphasised that point. That revelation comes at that level. So that means those of us who are not on the Bhava platform, Krishna doesn't reveal anything to us. Only for the ones on the Bhava platform. And that's a very, very high level. Bhava praying and all these other levels. So that's the question.
The Bhava theme is from the start of the purport to the end of the purport, and starts off with Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavad Gita 10.8. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise, who know this perfectly, engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So it's Buddha, Bhava, Samanvita. Buddha is the wise, the intelligent. And Bhava Samanvita, it's the translation for that is with great attention. And the way that it's translated into the sentence is with all their hearts, with all their hearts. So the stage of Bhava is with great attention, with wisdom, then one engages in devotional service. And perfectly, the wise who know this perfectly. So the perfect awareness, and then the revelation becomes of that higher level, higher realms. We're always getting revelation. We're always getting revelation of different, but the modes are still affecting us, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. So the quality of the devotional service is tinged. It's Jnana Mishra Bhakti, it's Karma Mishra Bhakti, it's not pure devotional service. At the stage of pure devotional service, the happiness that one derives from pure devotional service is it decries the pleasure, the happiness which is there from the ocean of pleasure of the impersonalist, achieving that Brahmananda. So the level of realization of pure devotional service is something that is a different level, different category. So we're getting a little glimpse of that, and revelation drops of that. We get that special mercy. We're always getting some special mercy, but sometimes that's not there to sustain us. So we have to what's the word? We have to replenish or to revive. Even Caitanya Caritamrita, there's a description of Srimati Radharani, she has moments of remembrance of her time with Krishna. So she keeps those moments of remembrance locked up in a little box. Her jewels, her precious jewels, those are the things which sustain her. So every now and then she opens the box and she takes out those moments of remembrance and she polishes them up and then she worships them, offering incense. So for us that might translate into the time when the kirtan was ecstatic and we didn't want to stop. The time when the prasadam was just mind-blowing. We took a bite and it blew our minds. So those times of revelation which we're looking for, which we're happy to have, which the realization we're happy about the glories of the devotional service, those things we need to replenish and to remind ourselves of until those revelations become of a deeper nature and permanent and we can't think of anything else.
So the point is that now Prabhupada actually makes that statement. It seems a bit strange that the revelation begins at the level of Bhava, and of course you explained that there are revelations of those who are in the beginning stages as well, but they're not on the level. It seems to me that Prabhupada made that statement, but he's referring to full revelation, and someone who is perfected with God. Now also in the Madhurya meeting, he actually mentions that all the other levels, there are elements, not only Bhava and Prema Bhava, and you get to the Ruchi and the Nishta. There are elements of them that are given by mercy, even to those on the lower level. In other words, we can have Ruchi, taste, but Ruchi on the higher level is really after Nishta, after when you're steady, free from the masters, then you really get Ruchi, and actually there's also higher and lower levels of Ruchi. So, but then he goes on to explain there are those elements of Ruchi and Nishta and Bhava and even Prema, sometimes they give it as by mercy, on those on the lower level. So when Prabhupada makes that statement that the revelation is only the start of Bhava, he's obviously referring to the highest levels of revelation. That's better than you explain it very nicely also. And you did explain that on the lower levels we do get revelations, but not on the level of someone like Srimati Radha, who polishes the bedroom and offers worship with. I think that's the, because I noted that when I was reading that Prabhupada seems to make a point here about starting at Bhava. So I think we have to be mindful that, all right, yeah, Bhava, and then of course Prema, part of revelation, Krishna reciprocating with you on that level. But also on the lower levels, you get it.
Yeah. There's quite a few statements at different levels. I've heard also that Nishta, once you get to the stage of Nishta, that's when your devotional advancement starts to accelerate. And then the other, but there's not that before that you're not getting some steadiness, you're not getting some encouragement, but just then it becomes easy, it becomes more full, more tangible. Before that stage, encouragement, we've got a long way to go. Just keep
in other words, we're not Nishta, we're not free from anatta.
Yeah.
On that, Swami repeatedly relates the revelation of Bhava as Krishna reveals himself to the devotee. The devotee actually sees Krishna at that point. That is the revelation. The verses of realization. He actually sees Krishna. At that point, several times.
Also, revelation of the eternal form, service of the living entity, at the stage of Bhava, understanding who we are. Yeah, that's
That seems to be that level of revelation at Bhava is another thing altogether, that the revelations we're getting now. So, you know, the man in the blue city, our eternal fundamental form, and then Krishna manifest in the Eastern
Caitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.